The regular meeting of the Engineering and Operations Committee of West Basin Municipal Water District, and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. And if we can have a determination before, Mr. General Manager.
Happy to do so, Mr. Chairman. Director Harold Williams. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Don Deere. Here. Director Gloria Gray. Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next item's up, public comment. Do we have any comments? Any member of the public?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did receive an email correspondence from Mr. Sean Carter, I believe on the 16th. That letter should be before you for those that are here. And we have actually emailed it to the entire board as well. We received a follow-up letter on October 18th earlier today. So he had put in a request for some documentation. He has since withdrawn that request. But as I mentioned, he did submit also a request to speak on a public comment today, and to my knowledge has not removed that request. So if Mr. Carter is here today virtually, our normal time allotment for this is 3 minutes per person. If you'd like to speak, please indicate so now.
Yeah, correct. I'm Sean Carter. And I joined virtually just to clarify exactly as you said that we have no objection to the bid result as stated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. And again, Mr. Chairman, this meeting is being held both virtually and in person. I do not see any request for public comment here at our Donald L. Deere building headquarters. If there are any members of the public that would also like to make a public comment, please indicate so now by raising your virtual hand.
It's Tom Poshman. I don't know how to raise the virtual hand, but.
Not a problem. If you'd like to make public comment, please begin now. We'll start a 3-minute timer.
Okay, I'm here for any questions that the board may have. I'm from Sinor Water America, and I'm here should you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that concludes public comment.
Okay, so with that, we will move on to presentations. Are there any presentations today? Oh,
Mr. Chair.
Director Gray.
Hello. Yes, I
Yes.
am here. I want you to recognize my presence. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the action calendar, and the one item we have today is the replacement of the Phase 5 filtration membrane modules. Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce that item?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, the item before us is action item 5A. And for this presentation, we have Susanna Lee, our operations supervisor.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, committee members and Chairman Alvarez. As this item has already been talked about briefly, it is before you regarding replacement membrane modules for our Phase 5 filtration system. As the board is aware, West Basin produces advanced treated recycled water for both our barrier systems and the Chevron boiler feed at ECL. And beginning 2017, West Basin begins to rely more on both Phase 4 submersible membrane system as well as our Phase 5 system, providing the pre-treatment to the RO membranes for both the barrier and Chevron. And Phase 5 membrane filtration system was commissioned in 2013 and was originally fitted with the original equipment manufacturer, OEM, membrane modules from Paul Corporations. With the expansion project in 2019, there are additional 2 racks of membranes that were installed, and now currently with a total of 1,120 filtration membranes for the Phase 5 system. And as I mentioned, the membranes were subsequently replaced in 2019 as part of the expansion project. And at that time, Hall Corporation membranes, or the ARIA Asahi membranes were the only qualified membrane vendor at that time. In the last 10 years, however, the low pressure membrane industry has grown significantly and resulting in increased number of low pressure membrane suppliers in the market. And so West Basin has been conducting pilot studies and testing for multiple low pressure membranes modules since 2015 for various West Basin recycling water applications. Staff also have established a standardized membrane pre-qualification process for West Basin in 2022. As you recall, in 2021, we had a pretty significant event upset at our main plant. Both phase 4 and 5 systems were required to be continue to be operated during that time to provide productions for barrier and chevron systems. The phase 4 system membrane have already been replaced. At this time, the phase 5 filtration membranes that were installed in 2019 have shown significant decline in the performance since the first quarter of 2023. And hence, at the beginning of this year, our barrier production remained to be relatively low and has required labor-intensive membrane pinning activities throughout this last half a year. While the membranes were originally slated to replace at the 5-year milestone, staff is expediting and requesting procurement for new membranes to replace the lost production capacity. As I mentioned that we have established the pre-qualification process in 2022, and we have completed that pre-qualification process in April 2023, and resulting in pre-qualifying the 2 new modules for the phase 5 low pressure filtration system. And table 1 lists the key specification criteria for each of the membranes, and they listed the pre-qualified vendors. Subsequently finalized the phase 5 membrane filtration membrane procurement specs in June 2023, and we have issued an IFQ for the procurement on July 27, 2023. Bids were due on July, and staff received 3 bids from the 3 pre-qualified membrane suppliers. Because the membranes are now fitted with different product sizes and membrane areas, so the winning bids was determined based on the lowest price per square foot. Table 2 lists the results for the bids. As Table 2 indicated, the low bidder is Sinor, and with a total price of $1,750,958. I do want to point out a typo in Table 2. The freight charge for Sinor should be $61,500, so that will be corrected before the board meeting. Sinor membranes were tested as part of the 2018 work project 4906 and has met the requirement. And staff at this point is recommending the board authorize the general manager to enter into agreement with Sinor. And with no more questions, I will be reading the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to enter into agreement with Sinor for the procurement of 1,232 phase 5 replacement modules for a total not to exceed amount of $1,875,958.80, including shipping and
Any difference in quality of the 3 products?
throughout pre-qualification testing.
Quality,
Yeah, the quality.
the 3,
We determined
they're all qualified.
Yes.
Director Williams, do you have any questions?
Just in general, were these bids open and read aloud in public?
I don't know that we shared them initially, but we have discussed them at length, and of course, they're included here in the board memo.
We published the bid tabulation. Sometime in September.
Any objections? We received any?
We have not received any that have not been withdrawn.
Thank you.
Director Deere, do you have any questions? Director Gray, do you have any
No, I don't.
questions?
Thank you, Chair.
Note that in the case of all three proposers, that the membranes are all manufactured in the Far East and not in the US. And we have expressed in the past a policy of buying American to the greatest degrees possible. So did we investigate a possibility of purchasing membranes manufactured in the United States?
But we have worked with our membrane expert SCI, and we have confirmed that currently there's no other membranes that are qualified to be fitted with the Phase 5 membranes that are made in America.
Well, whatever we can do to promote the Buy American policy by encouraging manufacturing of all of the equipment that we purchase to be manufactured in the United States would be a very worthwhile goal and consistent with the policy that this board has taken. And I hope that our vendors out there recognize that and encourage the manufacturing and seek that that manufacturing be done in the United States. I don't have any other
Question.
Go ahead, Director Williams.
Do we have a written policy on that?
Well, we adopted a resolution and there's some work going on to institute it in our administrative code. But we did, the board did adopt a formal resolution stating the policy.
And we include that in our bid specs?
I don't know if we did. That's a good question. Did we?
We have not. The process in which staff would go about implementing that policy is still being determined. We've been working extensively with our legal counsel as well as our procurement team to really understand the specific definitions that we hold all those bidders and product providers to. And so it would be very difficult for us to include that within our specs at this time. But I do know our legal counsel has been assisting us and a great deal of work is being accomplished. My understanding is that our legal counsel has been working with Director Alvarez as well as our board president, Scott Houston, as far as defining that process and the schedule of which we would bring that forward. But we're working as fast as we can on that policy.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because I was wondering if it applies to director and staff.
It applies to directors and staff. My understanding is that the resolution was universal, so it would apply to directors and.
It would apply to anything that the
But how-
district purchases.
But how we go about,
But not what not what district employees
No.
purchase. We're not held to that.
As an
not as
individual, no.
individuals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, any objection to moving this forward to the board with the staff
No,
recommendation?
we have received no problems from the bidders. No one is unhappy with the way the bids turned out. I would move staff's recommendation.
Okay, with that, we'll move that forward.
Thank you very much.
So next item up is the information calendar, and we'll start out with the monthly engineering report.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As always, we have a team leading this effort, but we'll begin this presentation with Mr. Wendell Johnson, our Manager of Engineering.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. Please turn to page 12 of your agenda packet. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what's coming in November. And I have staff here with me, and we're going to talk about progress of the projects that went on in the month of September to October. Next slide, please. In November, we're going to be coming back to award a contract for construction for the VFD rehab project. And this is the construction or the actual award of the installation of the VFDs. This bid is due in today, and we will have results analyzed shortly about that, but preliminary, we have several bids that are below the original construction estimate from the design consultant. So it looks like we've got 3 bids to take a look at. And so we're pretty happy that we were able to get 3 bids on that. Next month also, we'll be coming back to award the Palos Verdes recycled pipeline project, the pump station construction award. As you're aware, the project was divided into 2 different parts a while back to be able to proceed ahead with the project. And the second part is pump station, and we'll be awarding that next month, November. We will be, as requested by the board, the next item is the information item about the solids handling project. The board requested that we come back several times during the development of this design. And last week, we received the condition assessment, task number 2. And so we are in the process of looking at the information and developing a staff report to share the findings of the condition assessment with the board. I can briefly tell you that there was nothing beyond our expectations. So we feel that the project will still be able to be completed within the budget. Next slide, please.
So if I can interrupt you before you move on.
Sure.
Back to the VFD, I know you opened the bids today. I think that's what you mentioned. And you received 3 bids. You said 2 are under the engineer's estimate
Correct.
by significant amount, like more than 5%, or just barely?
One is just at the engineer's estimate, and one is below. One is about 20% below the engineer's estimate.
Interesting, thank you.
Next slide, please. I have Veronica here, engineering supervisor, to give you an update on the PV recycled water.
Good afternoon, directors, Chairman Alvarez. Can you please pass forward to the next slide? So these particular slides are like highlighting like some of the changes. Some of the slides are like becoming like more like typical every meeting. And to minimize, the time that we go through these, the changes are highlighted. And one of the good news on this one is that the contractor was able to obtain the encroachment permit, which he applied, or contractor applied on July 31st, and we obtained it on September 28th. So that allowed the starting of the construction work on the streets. So contractor has been already hauling on along the alignment. So they started Calle Mayor and Nanza in the first trench. If you can please move forward to the next slide, please. They move forward into PCH. Okay, so the next slide. So essentially, one of the items that we have also maintained track is on RFIs. RFIs, requests for information, are being responded as they come in. This slide is updated as of October 5th, 2023, and these were the information that we had at the time. These numbers will be updated on the next month, but right now we have, as of that day, we have used 101 calendar days out of the 270 calendar days of the construction. We haven't gotten any invoices yet, so that's why maybe the budget sheet hasn't been updated, just because we are still waiting for those invoices to come in. On the next slide, please. So this is basically some photos of the construction activities, the starting of those. You can see on the left upper hand the photos of some survey going on for the alignment, and the other photos are basically photos for the potholing that is ongoing on ANSA. In order to notify residents of the activities that were going to happen, we issue construction notices to basically areas that we were going to be doing more visual work, or like people was going to be able to see us. So the first area that we started construction, it started from ANSA and Calle Mayor to PCH. Right now, the contractor is now moving past PCH. They're going into Montana. They're going to be potholing PCH this week at nighttime. There was a meeting with Caltrans inspectors, and the inspector allowed the potholing to happen at night. So that's going to happen tomorrow and Friday. But the rest of the potholing is happening during the day. So with the idea of having this potholing in advance is that if we see a potential interference, I guess, with the pipeline alignment, we can always make the corresponding realignments with the design engineer and try to minimize any impact for some utilities that shouldn't be, maybe, that are there and are in the way. So next week, contractors going to start trenching while they continue potholing the area. So the trenching again starts on ANSA. They're going to start about 200 feet away from the connection point. And then move their way to PCH. And then the connection point is going to be done at a later time. On to the next slide. This is, again, because the construction is basically rolling into the activities. We are still in the process of generating the numbers for all the workers that are going to be working on the different tiers for this particular project. However, this is just an updated slide that highlights the letters of assent that have been received for this project. So I believe that there's only just one that is missing, but again, those are needed before the contractor, that particular subcontractor, starts working. So the work of that contractor will be coming in much later. Into the next slide. This is just an anticipation for the construction of the pump station schedule. We are still on the schedule. We are on the bidding process. We're expecting to receive bids on October 31st, which is just basically around the corner. And our anticipation is that we're going to be coming to the board in November to do the construction award. In regards to the pump station completion, it's estimated to be on May of 2024. There are some long lead items that a contractor or contractors have basically, notified us in regards to the construction timing, in which we are assessing to maybe give another few days basically for the construction to be completed. So that's basically the asterisk on that May 2024, that if we issue that they might be extended. So yeah, that's still to be issued and finalized. The next slide. So this is a slide that you've seen in the past in previous presentations, and basically are like ongoing conversations that we're having with the city of Torrance, and that we are in the process of resolving, and that there are not an issue for the construction or the bidding process. This particular slide, I'll focus on the easement. The blue shaded area is an existing easement that belongs to LA County Flood Control District. And the dashed dark area is the easement for West Basin, for the pump station, and also the pipeline that goes along the parking lot. And the bluish greenish area is an easement that SE of Southern California Edison requested for the transformer. So all the information that we receive from LA County Flood Control District is that they do require a covenant document from the city of Torrance to basically, maintain their easement and access to their utilities. And for SCE, that because this is a new utility, they're basically asking for an utility. So the city of Torrance has reviewed the information. They are good to go on the Southern California Edison easement. And on the covenant, they are just in the process of reviewing the language between the agreement that they have with LA County Flood Control District and the language that they have with West Basin to maybe have that modification if they need to address the fact that we need to give access to LA County Flood Control District if they need to access the utilities. That is something that if we receive any language for modifications into the agreement, we'll bring to the board and we'll have legal also review to make sure that the language is compliant. And other than that, the next slide. So that's one of the items that we're still working on. The next slide is also another figure that you've seen in the past, and it has to do with the existing utilities that are at the location of the pump station. The yellow highlighted areas are existing catch basins that are located at the parking lot and adjacent to the parking lot in the area of LA County Flood Control District. And essentially those basins are above ground, and we're going to be putting those basins below ground. So the proposed catch basins, those are basically the basins that are going to be installed in order to basically compensate for putting those two basins underground. And those have been reviewed by the city. And there is only one catch basin that you can see on the north portion of the easement that is outside the easement. So on that one, we're working with the city of Torrance to determine whether the catch basin can stay there or whether we just need to move it to inside the easement. It seems conversations with them seems to indicate that they will be fine with us keeping the catch basin where it is, which is on the north side of the easement. However, they might ask us just like to maintain, some housekeeping for that, and we're in the process of basically getting that information in order to understand what that would be. And also on change of grading, that means that if we were to move the catch basin to the inner portion of the easement, we will have to do some regrading on a couple of parking spots that are adjacent to the easement to make sure that the flow goes to that catch basin. And on the west side of the easement, you see also another reddish square that basically also is another topic of conversation with the city of Torrance. They have requested some riprap, but we're in the process of potentially removing that because it seems like they will be fine without that. They didn't have one before, and during the reviews they asked for it, and then right now we are in the process of maybe waiving that and not need to install that. So those are ongoing conversations that again we're working closely with City of Torrance and will be finalized soon. Next slide.
Veronica, before you move on, I have a question. There are two existing catch basins, the yellow ones, and there's 5 proposed catch basins. These were included in the drawings?
These are on the drawings, on the existing drawings.
Why are we having catch basins?
Yeah, we did a hydrology report basically, and basically the hydrology report indicated where the catch basins needed to be, installed in order to compensate for the catch basins that are currently at the field.
And the two existing ones are going to go away?
The two existing, yes, basically they will be, they are right now. Like you can go maybe to the previous slide. Yes, so you can see on the right upper hand those catch basins. They're basically open. So the booster pump station will be basically right on top of that. So we need to lower those, and in order to lower those, we need to install other catch basins in that area.
Okay, thank you.
So, excuse me, so are you trying to avoid a ponding problem?
Uh,
Are you anticipating a ponding problem?
Well, no, we are basically, we are substituting what is already there by installing these facilities, basically. So the catch basins that are currently on the design are basically taking over for these two existing basins.
Okay.
And then I believe that was the end of the presentation. You can maybe forward to, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Good afternoon again. Kevin is out this afternoon, but I will be providing you with a quick update on JMM Carson Phase 2 expansion project. Next slide, please. For the most part, all the construction is complete at JMM Carson, and I'm pleased to announce that we started the commissioning process, which we're 1 week into what should be a 12 to 14 week process. Okay, and as part of the, we've gone through the first phase was the flushing of the new modules that are out there. Now we are in the process of individually testing individual modules, and we will be sequencing individual modules probably for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then about 6 weeks from today, we hope to be producing water, and the part of the acceptance process is to have a runtime of 30 continuous days without any outage. And so once that's completed, the project will be considered substantially completed. What we're looking here on this page, on page 23, is a detention basin. This is, it was designed without a bottom, and this was a modification that is being done to the retention basin to put a barrier in there and to also put in some riprap. So this is the last physical thing that will be constructed out on the project. Next slide.
Before you move on, why did we put in a liner?
The liner was put in there because in order to prevent vegetation growth, okay, and as well as to contain and eliminate any possibility of contamination of any soil or any releases that may be released on the site, chemical releases that drain to the detention basin. This will prevent groundwater contamination or soil contamination.
Do we have, in all our areas where there is chemical handling, do we have chemical containment?
Yes, by the time we'll be done with the project, we'll have majority of the tanks will be contained, but there are still a few processes that are outside of this expansion that also need to be contained.
And most of the drainage then comes from just impervious areas or pervious areas that are draining through to the back.
Correct.
So it would just be natural or normal flow from an urban environment.
Correct, in the future.
You mentioned there's a potential for soil contamination. If it's just normal flow and we're containing all of our chemical facilities, why is that such a concern when there's a lot of talk about capturing water, just letting it naturally percolate into the ground? And maybe you did mention that there will be additional growth, vegetative growth, and that's a maintenance item.
It's for vegetational, it's to prevent vegetational growth as well as to prevent any erosion The detention basin is quite steep, and without the membrane and without the riprap, you would have constant maintenance or sloughing of the sides because the slope is almost at a 45-degree angle in order to contain the required amount of water.
It seems that without the additional rock that was brought in, that could all be placed around it and act as a riprap in an open bottom basin, and then water could go in there and just naturally infiltrate. But a lot of the practices now is for retaining and infiltrating water in local sites. Also limits our capacity here, because if you lose the infiltration component during a severe rainstorm, what happens when this basin fills? Since it's got a liner.
Mention really quick, good afternoon, directors, and Jamie's manages, this site has an industrial stormwater permit as well. So that tacks on a lot of requirements as well. It gets in a real sensitive areas. A lot of the directors know when it's considered your recharging or infiltration. Sometimes to have large pooling areas that have designated infiltration from an industrial site as they consider it, then you have to have certain filter systems underneath, like a lot of the sophisticated systems we see out there. And this is also, and Jamie can lend some more advice for soil stabilization on that and to capture, even nowadays, you get cited if you have too much turbidity from just soil running, dirt running off your site. So we also like to be able to capture that as well. That allows us to not exceed our industrial stormwater permit limits. And Jamie can talk on her off more about that as well too. And I will tell you, ECL is being asked to enroll in the industrial stormwater. We'll start seeing some of these creative BMPs.
I appreciate all of that, and maybe we can work with the regional board on industrial, because it's the same regional board that's encouraging and requiring stormwater capture, retention, and infiltration on sites. And so I appreciate the sloughing issue, et cetera, but for all the additional rock I see placed on the liner, that could have been also placed, and it could have been made more of an aesthetic landscaping feature in that pond.
I think,
Okay,
I'm not quite sure this is complete. I thought that there was some more requirements. I think this is working an issue between us and the contractor. I just know that this is part of the soil stabilization. This is an issue that's being looked into, and there is some back and forth with the contractor on what to do with this area.
so this became more of an issue between us and the contractor, and this was the resolution?
I can't speak to that. I don't know exactly what the resolution is. I know that there is a requirement from our permits to stabilize the soil.
Because we also have a construction permit right now.
Yes.
So as we transition from the construction stormwater permit to the BMPs of the industrial permit, then you might see, or we can work on where this becomes more aesthetically pleasing as a long-term BMP.
So maybe all of that could have been anticipated, and if we knew that a determination, you go from a construction to an industrial permit, or you fall under the municipal permit. Maybe we can revisit that and make it a more aesthetic feature, and I don't see that the regional board is going to be the real problem. I think that it's more of placing the rock and coming with that issue. Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. This is an image of some of the activities that are going on at the site. We're going back through and we're checking, we're torquing the anchor bolts for various pieces of equipment that are required. We are also installing some bollards around the site. This was completed so that vehicles or equipment don't run into large devices that are part of the process. Next slide. On the left is the wire tagging. The wire tagging and cabinet labeling and conduit labeling is some of the punch list items that are being done right now as we speak. And so I say that the majority of the construction is done, the actual pulling of wires and landing them and terminating has been done, and we're in the process of testing each one of the connections and each piece of equipment that is associated with the connection. And part of the work that has to be still done is some of the labeling of the wiring tags need to be corrected. On the right-hand side, this is an equipment pad that was placed earlier, concrete equipment pad outside of the product water tank that was placed earlier this month. Next slide. And to go over the contract has 724 calendar days. We're at 834. The contract cost was 22 million. We're about 20 million. We received 336 RFIs. We have processed 334 of them. We had a total of 377 submittals, and we have processed 372 submittals to date. Next slide, please. This is something to be proud of the PLA status. I feel that the PLA really performed really well. These are getting very close to our final numbers. The local approved local was at 33.5%. We were fortunate to be able to employ 7.1% at risk, and we exceeded our apprenticeship or job training program of the goal from 16.67 to 23.1%. Next slide, please. And this is the various contractors that worked on the project. And this is the distribution by district and by tier of where the labor actually was achieved. Next slide. And these are some of the trades that were involved in there. We had carpenters, cement masons, electricians, iron workers. These are all extremely well-paying local jobs that the project produced for the area. Next slide.
Before you off that slide, on-off hauling mixer, what specifically is that? What trades are those?
Which one is it?
On-off hauling mixer.
This would be your truck drivers, haulers.
So that's
Concrete hauling also. Cement.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. I have Camille here to.
Hello, good afternoon, members of the committee. I'm here to provide an update on the recycled water fill station. So if you follow along to packet page 31, I will begin. We have received all the conditional approval and approvals that are needed for the fill station. The Division of Drinking Water conditional approval was received on September 1st. The Regional Water Quality Control Board conditional approval letter was received on September 15th. And the LA County Department of Public Health approval was received on September 28th. I do want to note that these are conditional approval letters, so we are not allowed to operate the fill station, even though it is ready to operate, until we receive all of the until we have met all of the regulatory conditions. We are working with subconsultant Woodard & Curran, who is preparing our Title 22 permit updates to meet one of those regulatory conditions, which I'll explain in the next slide. Woodard & Curran is currently preparing that anti-degradation analysis, which is the condition. I do want to know as well, we are doing preliminary analysis on potential remote fill station sites for either a second residential fill station or a commercial fill station that will be located somewhere else in the service area. And we have Tetra Tech on board to prepare that tech memo too, once we have selected 3 sites. I'll be providing more information on that in the next month. Follow me along to packet page 32. These are the conditions outlined in both the Division of Drinking Water letter and the Regional Water Quality Control Board letter. On the far right, you'll see that we have met all the Division of Drinking Water conditions. They are pretty self-explanatory. We basically just had to ensure that we were able to communicate and everyone's safe when they're using recycled water. And if any modifications happen to the fill station in the future, we submit an amended engineering report. On the far left, you'll see the Regional Water Quality Control Board conditions, which we have met all but one, and that's the anti-degradation analysis. So this anti-degradation analysis is a larger effort because we are trying to capture the need for the anti-degradation analysis for Palos Verdes recycled water pipeline, as well as the fill station project all at once. So it is a larger effort that we are working with the consultant to make sure that we are able to communicate that effectively to the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And then on the next slide, you'll see that the next steps is basically focused on this anti-degradation analysis. So we'll be working to prepare and submit it to the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and then we have to await for their approval. We have already fulfilled the other conditions, which is we sent the Division of Drinking Water a copy of our as-built of the fill station, in which they approved, and then we sent that approval as well as the as-built to the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And that concludes my presentation.
Back to me with the solids handling. Next slide, please. So an update on the solids handling improvement project. We had the design kickoff meeting on Wednesday, August 30th. We've been back and forth on several assessments. On September 7th, we completed the electrical and mechanical condition assessment, which was held on September 7th. We had the first instrumentation and control condition assessment, and that was held on September 15th. And the second condition instrumentation and control condition assessment was held on Tuesday, September 26th. We received the condition report. It's about a 50-page document, and we will be presenting the findings from the condition assessment document at the November E&O committee meeting. We are still on track as per our schedule to get delivered sometime in December, the preliminary design report. Okay, our expenditure to date is about $70,000 of the $998 contract. Next slide, please. These are some of the milestones, and we're sitting there. We're in October. We received the condition assessment report. We will be reporting on the condition assessment report to the board in November. And then in December, we expect to receive the preliminary design report, and we'll be reporting to the board about the preliminary design report in January. And as we go forward in the contract, we expect to be doing some of the pre-procurement approval in January. These are the long lead items that are, most of them are sole source from the manufacturer of the original press that's out there. And hopefully in March, our schedule, we expect to be able to request for bids for the actual renovation of the device, and hopefully back in April to do a pre-award. Next, any questions? Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, again, this is the list of the 2023 to 24 fiscal year CIP project budget reports. This is a monthly updated. The items that are listed in these columns are current as of August 31st, 2023. Next slide, please. Again, every project that's in the CIP are listed in this table. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This concludes our next slide. What is that? We have one more attachment. Next slide. This is attachment B, and this is a summary of all the vendors that the department, the engineering department is in contract with, the status of the expenditures to date, and the length of the contract, as well as other information about the vendor in this table. And that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'm free to ask.
Thank you. Director Williams, do you have any questions?
Thanks, but no thanks.
Director Deere, do you have any questions? Director Gray, do you have any questions? We'll move on.
No,
to
thank you.
our next-
No, thank you. No, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Director Gray. And we'll move on to the monthly operations report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The item before you is 6D, it's monthly operations report. Similar to our engineering report, we do have a team here to present this item, but we'll begin with Uzi Daniel, our manager of operations.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon again, directors. Just some brief bullet points that start on page 44 of your packet. We always like to update you on our improved water quality. There was, in September was another small upset as Hyperion still deals with some of the remnants of their large sewer spill, making lots of repairs like lots of us. And so they lost some of their solids processing. This time it was great. We had a nice call about it, an early warning, so we could adjust and maintain all of our production. Leads nicely to the next bullet item we talk about. We did a very big, credit to Beulah, did a very big effort to clean out the gravity thickener, one of them, gravity thickener number 1. As we mentioned, when we had the large, it was 2 years ago now, right? The large upset, we had a big inundation of solids for a very long time. That means that we saw that build up everywhere, whether it was after treatment and some of the ferric and solids, and that's affecting a lot of our equipment. But we maintained and we resumed a lot of our operation, and now we're really into some of the real final cleanouts. And so a big effort was done to isolate this gravity thickener and get in, I think it was 30 different trucks to have to come in, vacuum it out, and have a partner in a different sanitation district to be able to bring that waste to. So that's a good effort for us to just continue to improve our water quality. And probably by the end of the year, we'll move on to the next gravity thickener. Along that same vein, we are having to increase maintenance efforts. Susanna will have a slide later on the AVIL pumps and the solids. We're having to take those apart and clean them out daily. Maintenance with some of the grit and sand and material that's been caught in there, but that'll also be remedied with the solids handling project. So eventually we will see that improvement as well, which is great. As Jamie will describe in her presentation, we have the tentative brine permit for ECL. They're due every 5 years. We reapply, renew those, and they are back to back, our 2 brine permits. The ECL one, we did submit our comments. Jamie will go into that later. We just got to see where the other comment was from, which I think is going to be worth sharing. And then that goes just like here, that goes to their board, and that right now is slated for November 16th, unless like with us, something changes. That's why you've seen a lot of the notices around. And then after that is passed, we will get the other brine permit for our Carson facility, and then we'll start implementing all the special studies. Staff's also been working really hard. We've kind of created a strike force for what we call JCI, but the fire panels. All our fire systems at ECL are a proprietary system. And we know those have their pros and cons. And so we've really been working on a concerted effort to clear those out. They did some inspections that always very commonly results in automatic notification to the fire department, gives you a certain timeline to comply and remedy those. And we're working as a team to try to make sure we can clear those out. And we'll let the board, if we have any updates on that or any need for added assistance. Otherwise, I think the team we have on board is great to get that done. And then finally, we originally had it in future tense, but in past tense, water harvest. I know we saw some of you out there. And just a shout out to, I know everybody works really hard on that pie, but to the ops team, all of the ops team was there Friday, Saturday as well. And the Veolia to the pre-cleanup, even some of the painting and those things. This year, I'm just gonna say personally, I've worked out front in that parking lot a lot, and it was real consistent, real friendly. Not too many people upset that they couldn't park around the corner, and kudos to everybody. I mean, it's a true team effort. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that. And with that, if you would like us to onto the presentation, happy to do that.
Board desire, was it,
I'm good with that.
you go with what we received so far?
Yes.
Director Deere?
Same.
Director Gray, are you satisfied with what we received so far?
Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave this item, is there anything in the report that really stood out to you that must be reported? Just want to make sure that there's.
You know, it's pretty standard. The two things, there's a little more detail if the board's interested in the brine permitting schedule, if anyone is interested in that. And there's a small update on our energy optimization slide. That's the only thing that seems to be very new to this, if anyone wants to see that. Otherwise, it's pretty standard, the monthly updates we like to share with you.
I would do that to the committee board.
I think the board's satisfied.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, we don't have any closed session today. Director comments and future agenda items. Director Williams.
No, thank you. What I have, I'm holding on to it for the pie meeting.
Director Deere. Director Gray.
No, thank you to staff. Thank you.
I don't have much in terms of any items to suggest right now. I may have it later for our next meeting. But I would like to recognize and congratulate Wendell. He is going to be moving on, and congratulations on your next assignment.
Thank you, Des.
We won't be seeing you here next month. We'll miss you.
I'm gonna click on it, it's just habit. Muscle memory.
Habits you will eventually pass on and break. But you're right. Anyway, congratulations. Otherwise, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're all not happy.